Hey everybody, welcome to DBS Films Podcast. My name is Kellen. With me as always is my brother Brennan. Together we make movies with DBS Films. Today's episode, we have just finished filming our 14th horror movie all about Bigfoot. So we're basically going to go ahead and give you a day-by-day breakdown as well as kind of our overall thoughts of the production process. Also, be sure to go ahead and take a look at our Discord channel online because that is the place to be. We cast directly from our Discord channel for a lot of opportunities to be on set and in our movies. And also be sure to take a look at Horror in the Forest, which could be out by the time you are listening to this right now. As always, you support us. That means we get to go ahead and support our community and make more movies. So, Brendan, we have finished the shoot. We do have the dreaded P word, which is pickups, but that is because of an act of God that we cannot control with rain. So I would say overall, it was a really, really good shoot in the sense of what we were able to get done. But more importantly, I'm looking through the rough here. I'm looking through the edit here. I think this is by far our best movie ever. Huge step up. So I just want to kind of get your general thoughts before we hop into a breakdown.
Well, it's difficult to be upset about this shoot. Am I disappointed that we have to do another pickup day? Yes. Am I disappointed that I have a movie hanging over my head? Yes. But we were prepared all the way through. The schedule was solid. Everything was solid. It's just by just the sheer force of the weather was the only reason that we were unable to finish this movie shoot. Just to give you guys an update on how we got kicked in the balls, basically in the last 3 months, there had been no rain at all in Tampa, which is where we were shooting this, just a little bit north of Tampa. 3 month, there was a burn warning. I was concerned about, our campfire stuff. I never even thought about the issue of rain. And in the 7 days they were shooting, I think 5 had really bad weather, with the last being the worst storm in Spring Hill history in the last 3 years. So just to give you an example of what we were dealing with. And I honestly think that we could even finish this movie in 6 days, because each of the 5 days before that, we had about a 2-hour rain delay, 2 or 3 hour rain delay. And right now in Florida, the sun sets at 9 o'clock and it rises pretty much right at 6 o'clock. So we only have like 8 or 9 hours to really be shooting this stuff. If you lose 3 hours, you're losing 30% of your day. It's very difficult. So the schedule was solid. The preparation was solid. The pre-production was solid. It was just the Blumhouse weather machine that got us once again. But that being said, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. We are going to have our first ever Super DBS pickup day, where we are going to complete the Roger project and we're going to complete the Bigfoot project at the same time. So we will clear the inventory and continue to move on. So it is not the worst thing in the world. That being said, I wish we could have finished it, but I do think that maybe this is a blessing in disguise, because it allows me 3 weeks to kind of look back at this movie and figure out what we need to do to kind of make this movie even better than it already is.
I like that you're looking on the bright side of things for that, because I do agree. I think the best benefit here is we have the rough of the Roger project. We will have the rough of the Bigfoot project, so we can kind of really get this. And, we've been saying, hey, we really want to focus in on this climax. So we got basically a few weeks to go ahead, plan and prepare, get ready to make sure that we end this movie with a bang. Because my goodness gracious, it is such a good one. It really is. We did it justice. I'm really excited to show the Discord members, when we are able to go ahead and do this. And huge shout out to, the entire cast and crew that we brought out. This is one of our larger casts when it comes to the amount of people that we worked with our community on. And I think they did a fantastic job. So this episode, we're basically going to go ahead and break down some of the days. I think we're going to get through like day 4 potentially here, give you guys an update on where we're at with that one. So let's go ahead, hop into the first day. I know there was like a day 0 where you, Dylan, and Andrew had a fun soccer game, and we're kind of just chilling out in Orlando. So that's always cool to see. Then we got to the location, as you mentioned, is out in Tampa, is the area that we were shooting out. And really the first day is kind of just to get settled in. I know I came a little bit later. Let me see what we had on that schedule there. We meet the gang. I think we really do. We just do the intro there. What do we even do on the first day of Sunday? It's always a really light day, as we mentioned, but I can't even remember that one.
Yeah, so it's not a DBS shoot without a little bit of first day jitters.
Oh, that's right.
We got to the location. Location is fantastic. Dylan did a great job at finding this Airbnb to house us, and it was about 5 minutes away from the woods, which is where we encountered problem 1. The woods area is about an acre, and it was not very cleaned out. It worked very well for what we're trying to do as far as like smaller stuff or the kills or stuff where we didn't need to be running around. It looked fantastic. The owner was absolutely phenomenal. She's really good to us. So shout out to her. It was just difficult to, tell an entire story where they're hiking and there's montages and there's just crazy stuff all the way going through this entire movie in a 1 acre area where really maybe 20% of that acre was actually usable as far as like a trail that was actually moving forward. So it became very apparent very quickly that we needed a second location. So that was a stressful moment. But shout out once again to Dylan to secure another location very quickly, got on the phone, and he made it happen. But the first night, my only goal was to do a pickup for Horror in the Forest because we had to send it off to distribution the next day. So I had to, the deal that we made with the distribution company that took this one was I can get this to you as quickly as possible, but in return, you have to upload this very, very quickly. And we had one shot in the Horror in the Forest movie where Dylan is setting up a hiker camera, which is a lightning rod for 1 stars because hiking cameras do not flash like that. So shout out to Howard who gave us a whole bunch of cameras. We went out there, we shot the pickup, we got it done, and we also shot the intro and a couple other scenes for this movie. Well, once again, it's not a DBS shoot without some hiccups. I went back and looked at the footage, and something was wrong with the footage. It did not look like the color palette that we usually use. The footage was very odd. There's a lot of grain. Something was wrong with the camera. Well, the night before, I updated the firmware for the camera, and I thought that, hey, updating the firmware is going to get you better picture. There's going to be better things, and now we could use this new hard drive because Samsung essentially discontinued the hard drive that we use. So the only way to use a new hard drive is to upgrade your firmware. The problem is that Blackmagic changed their color science, which never works with our LUT in the whole essentially color science that we use at DBS. We have a very fast workflow. Everything is kind of baked into everything that we do. So the LUT is imported into the camera. It's making sure that I'm shooting that, and then it is baked into Premiere. So it immediately imports in there, and we have color. So we don't need to spend all day color correcting. The issue is when something changes like that, it changes the entire process. And all that footage that we shot that night, which really wasn't a lot, was useless because it was shot in the wrong format. So cue me freaking out for about 2 hours to figure out how to downgrade the Blackmagic firmware for 4 years ago because I haven't updated this thing in 4 years. We finally figured it out and went back out there, shot the Dylan scene that we needed, put it into the movie, got the subtitles recaptioned, exported it, and then we dropped it off to FedEx so that we could, get this movie released, which is about to release probably either Friday or next week. As far as what we did for this movie, nothing. It just didn't happen. We had to delete all the footage, but the good news was the location was solid. We had another location. We had a good Airbnb and we were ready to move on. But that's just how it is. Every single one of these shoots, the first day is absolute chaos.
And that's why I was forgetting it. It was the firmware. I was like, I know we didn't film anything. Why was it? But yeah, that was a fun one to arrive on set. Either it's the Wi-Fi or it's the camera or it's something. But again, huge shout out to Dylan for getting the locations. They were incredibly convenient for shuttling from one location to the other. And, it is something where while the one location was a lot smaller than we needed, it was, a good kind of home base to allow us to spin around and do a lot of the camper scenes at. So it really did end up working out well. So that brings us to our second day, which is really the first real day. And this was a big day for the Discord because we had a lot of Discord members coming out. We had the campers. They came on out. Huge shout out again to Howard being a legend. We had one issue where we had to basically reschedule a flight, which meant the camper came in later. So we wanted to have a backup. And sure and behold, we give Howard a call, and what happens? He shows up. He does a great job. He helps out. He helped clear a little bit of the path too. So massive shout out there, but also huge shout out to the other campers that we had, and really again shout out to Gary coming on out there. Shout out to Howard for what I think is one of his best roles. I mean, he really is kind of improving there. But really, that second day was kind of getting all of the stuff done in that one smaller location that we had. And also, I think it was, a typical day two in the sense of, none of the scenes were really too hard. They were really kind of warming the actors up. We had Drew, we had Tatum, who did a fantastic job on set. But I think the second day was kind of more of a, normal warm up day that we typically see, that we typically try and schedule there. And again, huge shout out to all the Discord members who were there. They did a fantastic job in those scenes.
Yeah, it was just basically, do some easy stuff, do some campfire lore stuff. And the Discord came in, they did a great job. Shout out to Howard, who is pretty much our first phone call. When something went wrong, we called Howard and said, "Hey, can you get here?" And he's like, "Yeah." And an hour and a half later, he was at our door. So that's always good. Howard's always a champion. He's done a lot on this movie. The bear trap that he created is absolutely phenomenal. Kind of saved my ass a little bit because I didn't realize bear traps are illegal in the state of Florida. So all around, it was a great job. Shout out to Gary, who I think, came up with a really good idea as far as the backstory of the Bigfoot. One thing that we get a lot is, what is the motivation of your villain? And in my head, it's like, listen, whatever you want. I of all the things that we have to worry about, I think the villain's backstory is the least of one of my worries, or is very far down the list. That being said, that if we, come up with something smart or something clever, I do think it does add depth to the story. And I think in this case, particularly, I did want a backstory for the Bigfoot, because if you look at the Bigfoot communities, the Bigfoot is a protector. He doesn't just go around mercilessly killing everybody and causing all this havoc. That's just not what he is. And we have to have that because it is a horror movie. You want to have blood, you want to have guts, you want to have gore, and you want to have killing. So it was kind of like a conundrum of how do we kind of reward the Bigfoot community for watching this movie, as well as making a movie that horror fans are going to like. And I think Gary came up with a very good idea as far as, why is this creature that's usually a protector, that's usually pretty docile, that kind of avoids human interaction, turns into a killing machine? And basically, a couple hunters murder his family. And then anytime he sees a hunter, or a human, he believes that it is going to kill him, or he has like PTSD. So now we have a PTSD Bigfoot out there, and he's causing a whole bunch of havoc. And I think it's the best of both worlds. And I honestly think that little scene that Gary came in and gave will add so much to the story, so much to the backstory, that it alleviates the concern of, why is the Bigfoot doing this, but also adds depth to the Bigfoot character, almost to some of the times where, people are hunting him, you may feel for the Bigfoot a little bit. As tradition, I like all my villains. I root for my villains. So maybe if you were in the same boat, you're going to root for the Bigfoot. But I do think that everyone came in, did a great job. The campfire stuff is always good. The fire stuff looked phenomenal. And I'm just really excited to kind of get this stuff cut together. But I think it creates a very easy lore drop in a very engaging atmosphere, and a very cinematic atmosphere, which is always good. I don't think any of this is going to be boring. We have the luxury once again of changing it around, manipulating it a little bit. But I think everyone came in there, they understood the objective, and they got it done.
Yeah, I mean, I really do have to give a big shout out to Gary, especially in that story. And this was something, really for me too. Like when I first was like kind of hearing about, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I can kind of see a story there. But then when I started seeing some of the reviews for Forest of Death, and like someone was like, why is this shapeshifter killing people? I'm like, well, this is what like a shapeshifter villain does, it just kind of kills people. And then hearing Gary deliver that story, and now that we're putting it together, I think it's really something that I think it's the perfect missing element that we have. And I think, now moving forward, there should be some type of focus on, what is the backstory to this villain, or what is the backstory that's kind of caused this. And, we kind of do it in the sense of like, if you look at like Whitlow, there's like witches and stuff like that. But I think this was the first time that we really hammered home a specific lore. And again, something we echo all the time. you need to have multiple lore drops and kind of hammer home the same exact points multiple time. And what I really love about this camper one is the way that we have the campers through the multiple cuts and through the multiple interviews, you basically get everyone's story, highlighting it there. So whether it's Howard, whether it's Ricky, whether it's Gary, all of them are doing such an amazing job of basically giving us these plot points. And you kind of go from someone who either believes, someone who doesn't believe, someone who's convinced it's Jeb the Hermit, and then you have Gary basically setting the tone for why it is the actual creature out there. So again, I think it's a really, really great scene. And I think it's just a really strategic way for us to do these lore drops. We always say people should be able to understand your plot without actually watching your movie actively. And I think if you just, have your ears open, you hear multiple people talking about the Hermit, multiple people talking about Bigfoot, and then you have Gary kind of cementing it home with a really engaging story, all set over fire, which makes it look very, very beautiful. And I think it's going to be, one of our best lore drops yet. So I'm very excited for that scene. After that, we did just a little bit of stuff. That was really the major focus of it. We had some camp stuff with Dylan and Tatum and Andrew, and, really just to kind of highlight having that crew there. Dylan's been with us, I think, was this his 5th or 6th one now? So he's been doing this for a while now. This is Andrew's 2nd one. This is Tatum's 3rd one. So just wanted to kind of talk about how having that core crew really be on the same page and the same language just makes these productions so much easier.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the reasons why we wanted to go with them. Not only are they phenomenal actors, they understand the objective, they understand the language of DBS. We're a little bit different than other film companies as far as the language that we use. Understanding how I use the script, as far as like it's a guide for us to get on the same page. And after that, a lot of improv stuff is, happening. And, we're just kind of changing things up to make them a little bit natural, or we have opportunities to add spice to the movie. And they understood that. Andrew writes some fantastic stuff. Tatum comes up with really good ideas. Along with Dylan, I think that they kind of went in there. They understood where we needed to, beef up a little bit of the character development stuff. And then at my point, or my job is just kind of calibrate them to kind of bring them back. So I think that, it's just a comfort level and understanding that the goal here for this whole production is to make the best movie possible. And you have to kind of leave your feelings aside. And I think they understood that. They suggested a lot of things that I didn't use, and they, gave me feedback on stuff. And they're like, "Hey, Brennan, this just isn't very good." And we as a group came together and made it very good. So I think that, working with other actors, there's a reason in Hollywood that, Tarantino works with the same people over and over again. And it's because there's a comfort level. And when you find people that you like to work with, you want to kind of keep them in there. And I think Andrew did a great job of making sure that his character was not Bo from Horror in the Forest. Tatum did a great job making sure her character wasn't Kaylee from the Roger Project. And I think they're all unique characters. They have unique ideas. They have unique goals. It just really kind of, allows everyone to get to the peak performance area of really getting in the zone as quickly as possible, which is always extremely difficult, especially with new actors coming on set. It's nerve-wracking. There's a lot of pressure. You don't know myself. You don't know our crew. But the fact that they came in here with experience working on a DBS set, I think is going to show. I think this movie is much more natural. It's much more realistic than some of the other stuff that we had. And I think you're going to really like these characters. I think Andrew and Tatum did such a good job on really finding the small stuff to build and develop their characters to make you like them. And I think, once again, that's always the hardest thing for us with horror movies. You only have an hour and 20 minutes to tell a story. How do we kind of spice in and pepper in, character development stuff without taking away what the fans really want, which is a cool monster, which is a cool action, which is cool pacing. It's extremely difficult to do. And I'm really excited to see how we did with this one.
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing that I'm seeing now making my way through like that rough edit is it just feels very natural. Like those limited opportunities that they do have conversation, typically are very forced when it comes to us writing the script, but they did a fantastic job of, taking that, adding little elements that just make it feel like, these are actually people and not actors in a horror movie. And I think it really shines through. And again, overall, a lot of the things that people do not see is, what it's like on set behind the scenes. and they're always ready to go. They're always prepared. They're always, have that positive attitude and that positive spirit. And these are hard shoots, so it's not easy for the main actors, not easy for the main characters, and they did an absolutely fantastic job. So now we're going to head into Tuesday, and this was day 3. And the big focus of this day was our intro. We always say this: you got 2 important scenes. You got your intro and you got your climax. Intro is super critical because if they, turn off the intro, they're not going to watch the rest of the movie, especially on a AVOD type platform. And then if your climax misses, well, they're going to go ahead and leave you a nasty review because it just kind of keeps in their mind as like the last taste they have of the movie. So those are really the 2 important ones. This one, absolutely fantastic job again from our Discord members of Chris, Hayden, and Dan. So Mr. Wheeler, Billy Bartholomew, and Anubis did an absolutely amazing job coming out, portraying our hunters. They did a really, really good job in kind of having a good chemistry and what we were looking for, in the sense of hunters kind of pushing a little bit more of that ex-military feeling. You got a feeling that they knew what they were doing. And the big one for this as well too is this was the first opportunity for Tegan, Cause and Effects Makeup, to step up and show us some absolutely amazing special effects, which we will see throughout the course of the movie, with Dan's skull crushing eye pop, as well as Anubis losing all of his back to see some spine after he gets wrecked by the Bigfoot. So, that was really, 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 this was, I would say, our first, tough day, in the sense that we did wrap basically as the sun was coming up. We had Anubis ready to go. We were pulling them out. But I think overall, this is definitely our best intro yet. It's very dynamic. It's very interesting. And, the big thing that you've kind of heard me saying is we're horror movies. We got to lean in heavy to the gore. And I think we've really kind of established a new threshold here.
Yeah, there are 2 goals for this movie. The one was have a really good intro and to have a really good climax. In this intro, and the shout out to the 300s, because this was a very dangerous day. We were already about 2.5 hours behind due to some travel issues. And once again, we only have 8 or 9 hours to really shoot with the sun, because we have to shoot during the night. So we were already almost 30% of the time down. If the 3 hunters came in here and they didn't know their lines, they weren't rehearsed, or they were stumbling, a lot of this scene is oneers. If they didn't have this stuff down, there's a high probability that we wouldn't have got this scene done. And that would have been an absolute shame. And we really got to the end. We didn't get all of it. There's still a little segment that needs to happen after, the tent scare, but it's something that we can use voiceover and I can pick up myself. But it was a very high danger zone. I was feeling the pressure when we finally got to the location. We started shooting them because I knew we were down 30% of the day just because of some prior issues. And I didn't know if these guys knew what they were trying to do. The pre-production stuff was good, but it's a whole nother beast when you're on set. And we had a huge audience, a huge crew for this one. There's a lot of pressure. And within the first 5 or 6 takes, they were getting it. And it's a very blocking heavy scene. It's a very dialogue heavy scene. It has to be done with a oneer. You have to hit the specific beat. So it's very tricky, but they came in and they absolutely crushed it. The pre-production work has been phenomenal from all 3 of these guys, adding little things to their characters, adding military lingo. Chris did a great job with suggestions. The ending part of this is pretty much his suggestion, which I thought was really, really cool. And I mean, this was a tough scene. Shout out to Dan, who had to be basically shoved into this trail over and over and over and over again until we got it. And he couldn't see because his eye fell out. Was very, very difficult. Shout out to Hayden, who was popping in and out of this tent, and it's very difficult to do this. And we just couldn't get it right. I couldn't see the spine properly, and I had to continually do it, and change the angles and try and get it. And then finally, as the sun's coming up, I finally understand what I need to do to get this shot. And he could have been like, hey man, I've done 7 of these. I don't want to do any more. And instead he's like, I want to do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And I think I got 6 or 7 really good takes of this thing. Because he has to dive in there. He gets pulled out, and it's just, he's tired. He's probably been up for 24 hours. So my heart goes out to Hayden, man. He did a great job getting this thing done. And then Chris, being in the tent, under pressure. The sun's rising. We're waiting for special effects to come in, and he's just running dialogue. He's hyperventilating. That tent was like 110 degrees. And he came in there and he did such a fantastic job. And, we had given him recommendations. We're watching the Blair Witch, we were watching other movies and the hyperventilating, and his stuff turned out really well. He gave me so much to work with in post. And he always goes back to, that's the actor's job, is to give me as much variation, as much content as possible, so I can sit down and figure out what we got to do. And Chris gave me more than enough to really get this stuff done. And then he's going to do a great job as far as ADR stuff for the ending piece of this, to really get this intro to where it needs to go. But from what I've seen, this is our best intro yet. And I think it's going to rival Whitlow, because Whitlow's always been my favorite intro. I think this one could be 5 or 6 minutes long, develop the lore, develop the mystery, show the creature just a bit to get you intrigued. But I'm really excited. I think the goal of this was to make it 8 minutes short. And I think we nailed that objective. And I'm really happy with everyone who is involved in this intro. The pre-production work was fantastic. And I honestly couldn't have asked for any better footage. You guys came in, you were prepared, and you got it done. And I think this could have very made or break this movie if we had to scrap this or cut it down, or if we never got it on day 2. That's not good for the rest of the shoot. So I really think that this day kind of made this shoot, kind of made this movie. And once again, the goal was to make a really good intro, and I think we nailed the objective.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, massive shout out to everyone involved in this one. It was a lot of work. I mean, even Tegan working as fast as she did to get the special effects and makeup on them as we were kind of moving things in and out. And, as you kind of mentioned, there was no really backup for this. They were flying out in the morning. So I don't think we even had any sleep. We just basically got back at 7 a.m., waited till 8, and then just took them right back there. But they did an absolutely amazing job with that. And, really one of the things I do highlight is, like you were saying, Dan basically had a scene where he pops out and, he's falling down, selling that he just got smashed in the head by Bigfoot. So he's basically dead. So he was doing that over and over again. Hayden was getting yeeted out of the tent by me and Dylan. And we're like, "Are you okay, man?" He's like, "Let's do it." And, these are things where you could, I will not blame you for being like, "Hey, this is kind of can we get something here?" Or maybe I won't sell the fall as much. Dan was just giving it he looked like a dead body every single time. And me and Dylan were picking Hayden up. We even spun him one time on accident. So it just really kind of shows that the level of commitment that they brought to this production sells the movie, sells so much for it. And it's just so greatly appreciated. And like you said, it really kind of gave us the ability to have that momentum going into those shoots. We knew the intro was going to be tough. We knew that this was going to be one of those things, and we execute on it, right within the nick of time. We had the green skies of sunlight upon us, but we were able to finish and wrap. So that was really, really good. And, again, kind of set that tempo for the rest of the shoot. So that's going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Next episode, we're going to talk about the rest of the shoot, including that act of God that, Blumhouse and his weather machine have kind of, got to us on. But again, be sure to go ahead and take a look at our Discord channel online. We make movies for our fans, with our fans. So that's a place to be if you want to be on set and behind the scenes on the action. Also, there's a good chance the Horror in the Forest is out right now. Please go ahead and show that the love. Download it, rent it, review it. That means the world to us, because it means we get to make more movies, and more movies mean we get to cast more. But until then, have a good one.